David Basham, Primary Industries Minister. Welcome back on Flow.
G'day, Ricky. How are you?
Great, thank you. Well, let's start off water, I suppose. There's plenty of jobs on water when it comes to the seafood industry. The state government wants to take things a step further, make us the seafood state, I understand.
Yeah, no, we've got wonderful seafood here in South Australia, and we very much want to work with the industry going forward and put a couple of $1 million on the table to take their strategic plan directions forward. And looking forward to working with all sectors to make sure that we have a sustainable seafood sector, not just for commercial sector, but also for the wreck fishers and also for the charter boat operators and also the Indigenous fishermen as well.
All right, and then coming onshore, there's been a pretty good result when it comes to, I guess, the cropping and pasture report, the latest figures. Mind you, it's a smaller crop compared to last year, but a much better market value because of high prices.
Yeah, we've got wonderful prices for many commodities, and grain is just one of many, but it's certainly meaning great returns to farmers' pockets from their harvest last year. Certainly wasn't the best harvest. It was certainly above average, but certainly not the best, but is by far the largest value crop we've seen come off in South Australia's history.
And when we look at the pastures, we've got, I guess, some work being done by Landscape SA to encourage people to pick up these free or subsidised baits. How important is it that farmers work collectively to make sure that we knock over foxes in local areas?
Yeah, I mean, foxes is a problem for many, and we've got the bounty out there for people hunting them as well. All that sort of work is important, whether it be wild dogs or foxes. Getting people out there controlling those pests certainly. You just want a community action in this space because an individual farmer doing it doesn't necessarily achieve an outcome, but when the community gets behind it, we certainly can see great improvements.
And when you were talking earlier about the cropping yields being a little down but not a record, it looks like the wine harvest's off to a bit of a difficult start due to some seasonal conditions coming into the season, but there's been some good R&D support coming in for the Riverland when it comes to their wine industry fund.
Yeah, no, we've always looked to supply our wine industry here in South Australia. It's such an important part of the South Australian economy. Even the grapes appear on the carpets along with wheat in the lower house of Parliament. So it's such an important part of South Australia's history, and we do what we can.
And we're whizzing through the commodities here, but you've had some really good news to announce regarding Adelaide and fruit fly. Good news for our fruit producers. Yeah, finally fruit fly free, which is extremely hard to say, but it's nice to be there for the City of Adelaide. Today being the last day that fruit fly restrictions have all gone. So we can now move fruit freely across the city. Can't take it up into the Riverland. We don't want fruit moving up there at any point. But unfortunately, there's still some outbreaks up there that we're dealing with. And your press release indicates you believe you've eradicated fruit fly in Adelaide. I guess we can never be sure. What are some steps home gardeners can take around the state to make sure we're getting on top of fruit fly if it pops up anywhere else?
Well, it's really important at all times that people manage their fruit trees in the backyard. Don't let the fruit fall on the ground and just rot. Make sure they pick it up, put it into the green waste bin, better than putting it into compost heaps, because if they're there rotting away, it gives an opportunity, if there happen to be any fruit fly brought into the state, gives them somewhere to breed and multiply.
Now, looking at forestry in the southeast, the member for Barker, Tony Passon's been celebrating this amount of money the federal government's put on the table to support growing forestry plantations in the Green Triangle. He says the state government needs to come alongside and join in. Is that something you're planning to do?
Certainly have to have a look at the detail of what the federal government have put forward, but we've certainly been behind the industry. Generally, we've put money on the table to get the timber off Kangaroo Island. We've been working by putting money into facilities down in Mount Gambier and elsewhere as well. We're investing into forestry in South Australia. It is an important sector within South Australia.
Yeah, I noticed you, I think you might have been in attendance at an expansion at Tarpeena recently when it comes to forestry harvesting there. The state government, of course, when it was a Labor government, privatised the forests, and the local candidate for MacKillop claims that Peter Malinauskas admits that privatising the forests was a mistake. Is that the first you've heard of that?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that said, but it has been privatised. We have to work with it. The challenge is we can't direct forest to supply timber any particular way or
or any amount of quantity at a particular time as we could when we owned the forest. But we'll work with the players in the industry and make sure we get the best benefit for South Australians.
Yeah, just on the forest, the harvesting of the forest seems to have been a little bit more aggressive from what we're hearing on the ground than it might have been under government management. I guess that's understandable as a commercial operation. Is that actually what we're seeing in the Forestry SA plantations?
I guess we've seen, the way it's been explained to me is there's actually been some peaks and troughs within growth of those forests. Back the Ash Wednesday fires, when they went through back in the 80s, they actually caused a heap of trees to be removed and then replanted. And there's actually been a bit of a peak that's now coming to an end. So they've actually been sort of harvesting that growth that's been there due to that peak caused by a greater plantings than normal back as far as the 1980s.
Yeah, I guess it's confronting for motorists. They see a whole lot of forest they've probably seen standing and tall for a long time, and suddenly a lot of it's gone. But that's what you're saying. It's just getting through that Ash Wednesday backlog.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Well, Minister Basham, thanks for your time. We've whizzed through the commodities there, but a good comprehensive wrap for our South Australian regional audience.
Thanks very much, Ricky.